We're all on a winning team. Good.
And if you do want to move from the podium, we need to...
No, I can stand here. Okay, thank you very much. I'm Henrik Andersen. I'm not a geoscientist. I'm a chemical engineer. And just when I walked in the wrong way, I saw that also, if I had to go refugee, there's a Society for Chemistry. So if you're not nice to me, I know where to escape. And if I get some very tricky geoscience question, I'll just ask Philip to answer those questions. I'm the project manager for Equinor in the H21 North of England project. You're probably familiar with the Leeds Citygate project, launched 2 years ago by Northern Gas Network, but now we are doing the sequel, which is a real huge step up. I have a 19-year background in research, 10 years with Philip, and then I moved to business because I found after 10 years working on hydrogen CCS and all these business developers really screwing up all our good ideas, I had to do a big sacrifice and go into business. It was I would say, a step down from an academic and intellectual consideration, but it's something I had to do, I believe, to hopefully get these ideas materialized. And I think what I'm going to present, I think it's a good story for geoscience, because it's a lot about subsurface work, not only on storing hydrogen and CO2, but also the need for more gas resources, in particular the concept that Equinor have been working on. So the H21 North of England is a joint collaboration between Equinor, Northern Gas Network, and Cadent. It's, as I said, a follower of the Leeds Citygate, which was, I can take, careful here, a small dot up here, but then now expanded to a huge area comprising Liverpool, Manchester, Yorkshire, all the way up to Newcastle and Teesside. So it's a big project. And the reason why we did that is, first of all, Leeds was never seen as a commercial project. Leeds was done to prove it was possible to transport hydrogen in the distribution system. That was the main purpose. North of England is more like the commercial project. That's the scale you need to make it commercially more viable and more affordable for customer, because going from the current fossil energy to a low carbon will cost money for the customers. And what we've seen in Paris with riots and demonstrations, just when the governments are talking about in tax increase, we need to be very careful about the ideas and solutions we are promoting to meet the CO2 targets we are talking about. So I'll go through this project, but also talk a bit about Equinor's approach, why we are somehow pushing this hydrogen from natural gas with CCS as our, let's say, our main focus area in this hydrogen economy. We know a lot of our competitors and others are working on transport and renewable, but we are somehow taking a step back. We worked on that 10 years ago, but we've seen that really if we move into the areas where we currently are providing gas, that means heat, industry, and power, we can realize bigger projects much quicker at scale, and also what we believe a much more affordable way, and in a way that meets the requirement that we already are somehow having today about robustness of the system. We can supply this very resilient system, and so on and so on. So that is this is something you've probably seen before. There's been a lot of talk about electrification. It's really the way we should do it 2 years ago. Also in UK, it still is in a lot of European countries. We can just do a lot of renewable, a lot of wind, a lot of solar, and then we'll have batteries, and then we can transform all our segments, transport, power, industry, and heat, from fossil and other sources into electricity. We see that is a huge challenge, probably a bit oversold by those who are in favor of electrification. I mean, I think it's also something that politicians have realized, and particularly this beast from the east last year really created some thinking that might be a bit difficult for electrical solution to meet these beast of the east situation that the current system can handle as it is today. So what we talk about in Equinor is the hard to decarbonize sectors where we believe the hydrogen concept we're working on based on natural gas will play an important role. and that could be backup power for renewable, because we believe a lot of renewable will be introduced over the next 20, 30 years, but it's intermittent and we need a clean backup solution. And that's where we believe it comes in. It's for industry and not at least heat, because we need a solution that can also deliver on the seasonal variation, which are very dominant in UK and the rest of Europe, where you have cold winters and warm summers. And we use that to also illustrate it because, as I mentioned previously, fossil and CO2 storage have a kind of not the best image in Europe. So we're trying to say this is not something that will squeeze out green and renewable. We are seeing this as complementary to renewable, wind and solar, but we are attacking the decarbonisation challenge from the heavy end. So we make this very simple illustration, taking Europe, where we are consuming 450 BCM of natural gas annually. That's 4,500 terawatt hour. And if you take a year like 2013, it was a quite cold winter. And in that period, the difference or the interseasonal flexibility was equal to 1,500 terawatt. That means 1/3 of the natural gas was the interseasonal flexibility. So if we didn't have the gas system and that was replaced by electricity, then we would need another way of storing that and handling that interseasonal variation. And people believed or have believed it was batteries. So I make this very simple example saying, what does this 1,500 terawatt hour equals in terms of batteries? So if we take the famous Tesla S-Class, I think it is, with 75 kilowatt hour battery, you would have to have 20 billion of these, which is a huge number. Or if you take the world's largest battery today, which was installed 1.5 years ago in Australia, we need 11.6 million of these. But then say, okay, Norway, maybe hydroelectrical for Norway should be the European battery. There's been a lot of talk about that. Yeah, we have some nice lakes when we can store energy over a long time, but it's not all hydroelectrical that have this, let's say, that flexibility. But we have one big artificial lake in Norway called Blåsjø, which is the biggest green battery in Europe. It's 7.5 terawatt hour. Before that was made, there was 15 natural lakes that was combined, so it's also something the environmentalist doesn't like, that we are destroying nature. But we need 200 of these in Norway to meet that 1,500 terawatt hour gap. So it just tells it's quite a big challenge to electrify it and meeting the current, let's say, what gas is currently delivering in Europe today. And I think that's important to tell people who are working on energy transition and transformation. Okay, so our hydrogen, let's say, business is based on reforming natural gas into hydrogen. In that process, CO2 will be produced. And we take up that CO2 and we transport and store it. And the way we have worked at Equinor is mainly on saline aquifers. So we have Sleipner and Snøhvit as examples, and we are working currently on a new project called Northern Light, which also is in an aquifer in the Troll area. And that's also the concept we have worked on the H21 North of England and storing that in aquifers. So that is the base concept, and storage is really the enabler. We will not be able to materialize such a natural gas-based hydrogen concept without CO2 storage. So it's really critical that we have that under control. People are generally quite skeptical about CO2 storage, talk about leaks and fractures, everything, and what will earthquake do. But we try to be quite firm in our communication. I would, when we talk about communication and media, I would recommend you see the H21 movie, North of England movie. Philip have a key role, and you should ask your student to listen to what Philip says about CO2 storage. It's quite convincing. We asked him to say it's a piece of cake, but it was probably a bit too much. Okay, so why do we believe in natural gas reform with CCS? First of all, produce hydrogen at big scale. What I call terawatt-hour solution is what we believe is both proven and and reference technology. It exists today. It's been done before. And in our H21 North of England report, we are showing several examples with pictures of where you can find the technology today in operation. It's also built and commissioned at mega scale. So we have mega scale reforming plants in the Middle East where you produce liquid fuels, ammonia or methanol. I think Shell probably have the biggest. They have a huge GTL plant in Qatar at the same size as we are considering for the H21 project, which is around 12 to 14 gigawatt. We are working on quite aggressive CO2 capture rates, about 95%. It's quite important, and it's been an eye-opener for a lot of stakeholders to meet, because when we talk about CCS, it's been talking about 85–90%, but the 95% on an LCA basis, we can compete with solar, and we are close to be able to compete with wind on CO2 footprint. Robust and reliable design. We can design in a way that we can still deliver the same system, let's say, robustness as the current gas system, and it can deliver credible CO2 reduction within a 2030, 2050 targets, and we describe that in the H21 report. And we have a quite strong industry, and you are part of that. It's the oil and gas and chemical industry that really have the resources, the skills, and experience to deliver these large-scale projects within this 2030, 2050 time frame. So, just briefly about the H21. Here you see the area. So it's based on a natural gas reforming scheme, huge mega facility with a hydrogen storage on the east coast of England, Aldborough area. That's where Equinor already have a gas storage together with SSE, and we have a CO2 storage solution in the southern North Sea. So the entire project is about converting 3.7 million homes in that area over an 8-year time frame, starting from 2028. So even though, it's 9 years from now, in that project, a mega scale project, it's quite a short time. Design capacity 85 terawatt hour, and that is 12% to 15% of the gas demand in UK today. And with that mega project, we avoid 12.5 million tons of CO2. So it will be the biggest decarbonisation project in the world if it's realized. Some features on the production capacity and interseasonal storage. We also looked at storage in Norway, but both from an economic perspective and feasibility, we chose to particularly develop the UK scenario as the preferred one. Some more details about the production, storage and hydrogen storage and CO2. So we have quite a huge hydrogen storage. So it's about 56 salt caverns of 300,000 cubic meter. Which is a typical size we have for natural gas storage today. And for the CO2 storage, we did work with Pale Blue Dot and our own CO2 storage, people like Philip and his colleagues in Equinor, to screen out potential new sites in the southern North Sea. So we don't have endurance in this picture, but it's also an option for storing CO2 for this type of project. So we looked at storing 600 million tons of CO2 with an average of 70 million tons per year from this facility. And what I said is that we use saline aquifers as our primary way of storing CO2 based on our Norwegian experience. So some few details on interseasonal hydrogen storage. The nice thing about natural gas-based hydrogen production process is that natural gas itself is a flexible source of energy. So we have the possibility to scale up and down hydrogen production. So one of the exercises we did is how could we optimize hydrogen production with CO2 storage capacity. So if you look at this picture, you see this orange is the demand in north of England, and then we're trying to match production. So we could do a design without hydrogen storage, in theory. But then we will have to have a production which is designed to meet this 1 in 20-year event. And then that means basically a lot of hydrogen plants, modules will be out of operation for a long period of time, which will be a waste of money. So we try to find some kind of a, let's say, compromise. We could also design it as a flat production, but then we will have a hugely over-designed storage that will have to take care of all the fluctuation between winter and summer. So we have a design where we are producing maximum in the winter, but it's not enough to meet the demand. So we extract, and that's the blue curve you see. So we have to extract hydrogen from the storage during the winter to meet the entire demand. And then during summer, when we have more than enough hydrogen capacity, we fill up the hydrogen storage, and then we are ready for the next winter. And this was a model based on real data from North of England. So you can see in 2013, it was quite a cold winter, whereas you have quite mild winters in 2014 and 16. So it'll be interesting to see 2018, where we have the east from the beast, and see how that will impact such a design. So we looked at salt caverns. It's the best suited because we need to have a storage which can handle multiple cycles. And it's proven it exists already in the US at scale. Depleted oil and gas field is possible, but from the literature, it seems that it's mainly used if you have few annual cycles. When you store in a porous medium, here you might have more knowledge than me, is that you might not be able to have this capability to fast inject hydrogen and fast withdraw hydrogen in the same way. So that scale, we somehow say it's not proven, but it's definitely an area for research to look into whether that's possible, because we see we need some kind of what we call peak year reserve capacity, and using a cavern is still quite expensive and it's on land. So could we use more offshore hydrogen storage that could have and could somehow improve the overall concept? Here are some of the areas we looked into when it comes to caverns. When you have working on hydrogen molecules, it's very light, so you want to store at high pressure. That means you need to look at deep formations, and then you have to be on the Yorkshire side where you have up to 2,000 meter depth in the formation. It's also possible in the others, but then it's not the same volumes you can store. You will have to have much bigger caverns to leach out to make that happen. 56 caverns is a lot. It's a huge project, but we have this example from Germany, Etzel, where they have on a very dense area up to 70 caverns in operation today. That's marked with the yellow circles, where they have several caverns connected to each of these circles. So just as an example that it's in operation today. Going into CO2 transport and storage, we looked at the Bonder formation in the southern North Sea, and Philip and the pale blue dot guys identified 3 closures. That was the Bonder's closure 36, 40, and 3, which could be used to store these amounts of CO2. And what you see on the left side is how we phase in the different structures and how the amount of CO2 increases during this commissioning phase, from where we start converting the cities from natural gas to hydrogen over that 8-year period. So it not only phasing in the different structures, but also handling an annual variation between winter and summer in CO2 storage injection. Yeah, this is the system. It was based on a subsea template with up to 12 wells. Interesting learning was the economy of scale effect, because previous CCS projects have been about storing maybe 1.5 million ton, and it became very expensive, as you can see from the curve. But when we are at the H21 North of England capacity of 20 million ton, we see we are meeting some kind of let's say the point where we are at a lower end. So we're talking about if we are using a regulated asset-based financing model for transport and storage, we can store or transport and store CO2 at a cost below £5 per ton. which I think is a quite attractive number compared to maybe 40 and 50 ton, which was the case in the previous UK CCS projects. A little bit about the transmission distribution system. So in the concept, we are developing a completely new high-pressure transport system for hydrogen, because we need to maintain the natural gas, because we are doing conversion stepwise, so we still need natural gas during the conversion. NGN did a lot of work on how to convert the different cities in a sequential way. It's all described in the report. It's based on what are the resources available to do all that replacement of boilers and appliances during the summer, because it's in the summer we can do it. We should not do it in the winter, because then people will freeze. So that's quite important. A bit about the cost. Interesting to see is the total capex of the project is about £23 billion. It's a huge number. It's a similar cost as Hinkley Point, but this one is delivering, I think, 4 to 5 times more energy than Hinkley Point, which I think is a quite good sell point. As you can see, interseasonal storage about 2 billion, and quite interesting, transport and storage CO2 is quite a small part. So even though from a cost perspective it's not really critical, but for making this a green or low carbon solution, storage is of course the most important thing to be able to do. We cannot have this project without it. A bit about cost. Maybe you live in the UK, is a bit interesting about what will your energy bill look like in 2035 and so if you do this. So currently you can choose by having gas boiler or air source heat pump using electricity. In Norway we have a lot of air source heat pump, but in Norway it's a bit of a no-brainer because we don't have any gas to compare with, only have electricity, so we of course get a reduction in our energy bill. In UK, you're currently buying gas at 5 pence per kilowatt hour, £50 per megawatt hour, but the electricity price is 3 times higher. So it's much more difficult to make a decision on a personal level. Even though you have some energy reduction, it's still quite difficult. And it might not pay off the air source heat pump because it costs about 4 to 5 times more than a gas boiler. Then we looked a bit at what will happen if we do it all England from natural gas to UK. And we have some cost numbers in that. And in general, of course, the price of energy will go up because converting natural gas to hydrogen will cost money, as we can see here. So basically, the price of the gas will increase by around 20-25 pounds per megawatt hour. And that is shown here. So going from 50 to 75. The interesting thing today in electricity bill, you have something called social obligation and environment. That's for paying for nuclear, offshore wind, and biomass. That is close to 20 pounds per megawatt hour. That is so much you're paying for offshore wind and all the low carbon electricity sources in the UK. So if you could just get that on the gas bill, we will almost be able to finance a switch to hydrogen. I think that's interesting. But that's a 25 pound per megawatt increase. If you look at base forecast for electricity, they estimate electricity will increase by 50 pounds per megawatt hour by 2035. And I think that's an interesting number. So even in that perspective, we still have a difference between the cost of a factor 3, which means that a hydrogen boiler from a customer perspective will still be a much cheaper solution compared to installing air source heat pump. So the last one is really looking into the future, and that's, I think, where you should be very happy. In UK, there was a big screening study on CO2 storage 10 years ago by ETI, identifying a storage capacity of potential 78 gigaton of CO2. So I made this calculation saying, okay, what if I used all that to produce hydrogen based on a H21 concept? What I could do is I could do 90 H21 concepts in 50 years. That is 6,700 terawatt hour of low carbon hydrogen in a 50-year period. That is equal to the same amount that Saudi Arabia is producing oil today. But this is low carbon. So I say by that we can decarbonize all European gas 4,500 terawatt hour, but we still have 2,200 terawatt hour left. By that, you can decarbonize all European road transport. Adding in what we're seeing is a hydrogen cost that will equal annual revenue of £280 billion, creating millions of jobs and leading IPRs, and it will even enable more renewable. Because when you have such a system based on a quite robust energy system, it's easier to introduce intermittent energy source into it. That's what we see in electricity today. The reason why it's easy to introduce offshore wind is because you have a robust electricity system as a backbone. So that was the end of my presentation, showing the future, showing the vision. That's why we need to work together, and geoscience is an important part of our hydrogen and CCS story, and of course of H21. Thank you very much.
I was right, you were going to be enthusiastic about hydrogen.
Yeah.
Right, questions from the floor. Yes, go ahead.
Very interesting, thanks. To what extent are you factoring it? You mentioned right at the end of your presentation transport, and you know the biggest portion of UK carbon emissions now in our national accounts is from land transport. To what extent have you factored into your calculations, if you like, hydrogen for road vehicles, if at all?
What we factor in related to transport and also other sectors is that in our concept we have over-designed the transmission system. So it's 3 times more than we need for heat. Okay. So we can also deliver hydrogen for transport, power or industry. Otherwise we are in our vision, we have a vision session in the report where we describe how UK can go to, we call it H21 max scenario, where we're producing hydrogen not only for heat but for transport and power, where we say we can meet 80% of the remaining CO2 reduction that UK needs to deliver to meet the Climate Change Act by 2008, which says you have to reduce 80% of your emission compared to 1990. I think we have also a very good story when it comes to transport. And when you get hydrogen into a distribution system, it's almost like you can, as the fuel stage, you can more or less plug it in as you do today with electricity. Of course, you need to compress it, but you really have much easier access to the hydrogen source than you have today.
Jonathan Pearce, BGS. Thank you for a really nice talk. I just wanted to ask about why endurance wasn't on your list. Is there any particular reason? Yeah,
the reason is that National Grid have a license for endurance, so we like to look at formation that was not licensed out. Okay. But also really to show that there are more opportunities than just endurance in the area.
Rob Gothorpe, Bergen. Just wondered about the number 90 that you had from scaling up H21 and how critical the hydrogen storage is for that, if it has to be, say, in salt caverns.
Yeah, you could say, okay, then we need 90 more hydrogen storage, as I showed you here, and that means 400 terawatt hour. So of course that will be critical, but maybe more of that storage can be done in aquifers on deep oil, because caverns is mainly for these very high multi-cycles operations. So if more is more like a seasonal slow variation, 1-2 cycles per year, that's what you can do. And remember, in the old days when you had town gas, in Germany they stored a lot of that town gas in depleted oil and gas field and aquifers. So it's not really new. Of course, we need to go back in the history, maybe, yeah.
Was there one more? Yeah.
It might be a stupid question, but burning all this hydrogen, would we replace one greenhouse gas with another?
No, I think that's the whole idea of what we're doing, is that we shouldn't do that. And I think that's part of the programs that currently is running in base, where they have this high for heat, where they're looking at hydrogen appliances and safety, that we still can meet our current, let's say, emission performance and safety standards.
Hydrogen, water vapor is greenhouse gas, and we'll be producing quite a lot of it. If we
Yeah,
turn
we're
the whole
doing
of the
that.
world
That's interesting. It's I've seen that in some few publications. Some are saying it can be a problem. Some are saying it's not. It's some say it's more like a local phenomena. So
It's a very short-lived greenhouse gas.
Well, it's a 30% of the greenhouse gas source comes from water vapor. So it's an authentic question.
It is an authentic question, but I think the time frame, residence time for water vapor is extremely low.
Yeah, but I think we're just burning the hydrogen from methane in a different way.
You might locally change the
maybe a bit more foggy and. I'm not sure.
Interesting. One more question? No, there was a no or a yes? No. Okay. I could make a plug for this special issue because there's a paper on salt cavern development in northern Germany and how it would work, and another one on hydrogen storage in aquifers. So for the geoscientists, we've done the studies.
Yeah. Great.